Hello lovelies and happy International Women's Day. So yesterday you would have seen I posted some content around unconscious bias and especially around internalized misogyny. Today I decided to tackle another topic. This year's International Women's Day theme is around break the bias, and it's around a lot of the unconscious biases that we have that are contributing to the prevention of women, having as much equality in society, in the workplace, in culture as their male counterparts. And that is both women who are born as women and those who identify as women. Today I decided to tackle the issue of people of colour or women of colour in the workplace, because obviously sexism is its own form of discrimination and it manifests in a very distinct way, and racism is its own form of discrimination that manifests in a very distinct way. Now these two together are compounded when you're a woman of colour in a work situation or in a societal situation. I have to admit that it's a topic I've tended to avoid, and I don't know why. That's something that I will need to assess as I move forward on this journey. I tend to avoid the discussion of race in terms of myself because on some level I've never really tried to bring conscious awareness of my race per se into discussions, and that might be because I've always been transient. I traveled a lot as a child. I grew up in a lot of different cultures in a lot of different places. From the time I was 2 years old, I was living part-time in Australia, part-time in India. Then from the age of 5 to 11, I lived in Montreal in Canada, so I was assimilated into a French-speaking school, into a French culture, or French-Canadian culture. And then, I've lived in Scotland, and that's kind of always been my life. I've traveled a lot, I've lived in a lot of different places, and everywhere I've gone, I've kind of picked up a lot of the culture and I guess tried to assimilate. And that might be a protective mechanism as a child, living in different places, not wanting to be bullied, just to fit in, or if you stand out, you're kind of subject to unwarranted attention. So I don't know if that's part of the reason that when it comes to race in terms of my own identity, I've never really overtly considered it. My cultural background is partly Indian, partly British, because my family is Anglo-Indian. So we grew up wearing dresses, and I grew up as a Catholic, although I'm now spiritual and I don't practice. My family's still very Catholic and very religious in that aspect. So I guess I've always kind of been in different worlds, and I've never really fit in any particular identity in terms of culture. If somebody asks me where I'm from, I usually say a little bit of everywhere, because that's how I feel. I don't feel that I'm Australian, I don't feel like I'm Canadian, I feel like I'm both. And obviously I've got Indian heritage. So from that aspect, the fact that I don't really discuss or address the issue of race is something that's come into my awareness as this year's theme of International Women's Day was around breaking the bias, and obviously people or women of colour especially experience that, and as you can see from some of the data that I have provided in my reel earlier today, women of colour are actually even more hurt by the biases that we have, the unconscious biases that we have built within our systems, our economy, our society, and the way we do things. So yeah, I thought it was interesting to start doing that research today and to see the data that came out around the disparity between pay. So women of color are paid, I think it's something like 36% less than their male counterparts and 20% less than their white female counterparts. That was based on a study that was done in the US. In Australia, 6 in 10 women who were surveyed, women of colour, who were identified as women of colour, said that they experienced discrimination in the workplace. So these are quite strong statistics, and I think one of the biggest shocks for me was seeing the statistic around lifetime earnings. So that women of colour over the course of their life will earn over $960,000 less than their male counterparts. And that's a significant amount of money. Women of colour work basically 7 months extra to earn the same as what a man will earn in 12 months. These are incredible statistics, and one that I'm kind of shocked at myself for not having known before, for not having discussed before, for not championing before. And it's certainly something that I need to be more aware of as I move forward, especially in this work. Yeah, so it's something that I think we need to create a safe space to discuss. I do know that one of the reasons I avoid talking about race is because I feel really awkward about it. I have this feeling of, I don't want to be seen as that person. Oh, she's playing the race card again. And that might not be what people are thinking at all. But there is a part of me that feels like, oh, you're already playing the feminine card. Let's not rock the boat. And there I am trying to be the nice girl to fit into a square box. And that's not who we are as humans. That's not who we are as people. And so, yeah, I thought I'd jump on and just kind of talk a little bit about that, because it's something that I'm really aware of now. And it's something that I think we need to speak about more. And the International Women's Day is giving us a fantastic platform to open that discussion with our friends, with our colleagues. So I challenge you now to think about the statistics that I've shared, to go do your own research around discrimination, unconscious bias, the concrete ceiling, which is the term that was coined for basically the glass ceiling for most women is a concrete ceiling for people of color, and how that plays out and how that might be playing out in your workplace without you ever really noticing. So things that you can do to be an ally for women of color in your workplace is to talk to them, to ask them how they feel about whether they experience any of this sort of silencing or the invisible woman in the workplace. I read somewhere was even more prevalent among women of colour who were surveyed than their white counterparts. So yeah, I challenge you to have those discussions, to do the research, to be a champion for somebody who might be from a different ethnic background in your workplace, in a meeting, to ask them what they think about a particular topic, to become their friends, to invite them out. I read somewhere again that sometimes people feel awkward about asking somebody from a different cultural background to join them for drinks, or out of respect, or to socialize with them. I personally haven't really recognized that in my particular workspace, but it is an issue apparently, and it's something that I remember one of my friends, her husband, they live in the US, and her husband's a teacher in a predominantly African American district, and most of the teachers in that school are African American. He's one of the few Caucasian or white men in the school. And some of the discussions that they were having around race and culture and friendships, or even camaraderie at the workplace was really interesting. So it's just some things to think about, and some discussions that you can start having, and some research you can start doing, and using your own platforms to advocate for women of colour who are doing great work, or championing in your workplace women of colour, and raising awareness around these issues, if that's what you feel called to do. So that's just my 2 cents, and I certainly will be doing a lot more research and a lot more exploration myself around this issue, and perhaps why I haven't been speaking about it as much as I maybe should. So yes, I thought I would just jump on and share that little piece of nugget in honor of International Women's Day, and I hope you guys are finding a way to celebrate the women that came before us, the women that championed us to get to where we are now, recognizing that we have a long, long way to go, especially with COVID having kind of stymied some of the advancement that women can have in the workplace, in government, in the home, in the legal system. Just looking at some of the laws that have been brought out in places like the US that infringe upon a woman's rights to choose what they do with their own bodies. Things are sometimes going backwards, and that's scary. It's scary to see that in 119 years we're still facing so many issues on this topic, and we all need to make a stand and talk about it and advocate and do what we can to advance our rights, because women's rights are human rights. So that's just my little 2 cents. I would love to hear what you think. I would love to hear your experiences. So please do share in the comments below.